Now, joining us today is Professor Choo Jae-woo from Kyung Hee University to talk us through some of these developments. Welcome to the show, Professor.
Thank you.
Now, as you just heard, President Trump has said that there is no rush and no timeline for North Korea's denuclearization, and he said that they are going through the process at the moment. It's a huge contrast from before when he said he wanted immediate denuclearization and that it would happen very quickly.
Yes.
What do you make of this change?
First, I think he realized how the process is going to be long and winding road, contrary to what he thought in the beginning, because he thought he could get everything out of the way immediately at once, you know, because America obviously had better offerings and better hands at the table. So he might have thought that in business deal, when you have upper hand and you have better offerings, then you could get the deal done pretty immediately and fast.
Does he have, I mean, why do you think he thought he had the upper hand?
Because obviously he had more offerings to North Korea because, you know, with sanctions on the table, by lifting up the sanctions, it could boost, you know, North Korea's economy, just like Trump has been emphasizing over the past few months. If North Korea decides to go denuclearization, then they could lift up the sanctions, and then by lifting up the sanctions, North Korea could get a better economic incentives. And that's what businessman Trump had thought before.
Trump has said he'll keep the sanctions in place.
Yes.
But is that enough to pressure North Korea? I mean, is North Korea is North Korea suffering because of these sanctions?
Oh, very much, probably so, because just like Mr. Trump has emphasized before, and I think the South Korean government has agreed to that terms too, sanction has been really effective, and it has induced North Korea to come forward to dialogue with the United States as well as South Korea and China in the recent months. So I think it shows that, you know, how compounded their economy has been by the effect of the sanctions. So I think it has been working pretty well.
But there are always sources that are saying North Korea is doing something to get around them,
Yes.
and that they can avoid them this way and that, and China is helping them.
That's right.
Is there some ground to that?
Yes, there were, you know, numerous cases like that, you know, in the past, you know, especially when, you know, after the first and up to fourth nuclear test by North Korea and, you know, international community, although it has adopted some UN resolutions, but there was some, you know, leak holes in China and Russia at the time. So, you know, they found a way to get around with it. But this time, you know, with full participation and full commitment from Chinese side, I think that's what has been causing troubles to North Korean economy and North Korea itself.
Is there full participation from Chinese side though
Yes.
at the moment? Because China has already said they had started making moves to lift certain sanctions, like
That's
they've
right.
restarted chartered flights back and forth
That's
from China and North Korea.
Yes.
And tourism was on the up before the US got involved a little bit and said, can you slow that down a little bit?
Yes.
But still, China, we don't really know there's also some illegal coal and oil shipping that we're hearing about with Russia as well.
That's right.
Is there?
Yes.
Like, is it really full participation from Russia and China?
Up to that point, I think all these reports and allegations has been coming since North Korea has come forward to a dialogue, inter-Korean summit dialogue, and especially after, you know, June 12th, U.S. North Korea summit. But up until that point, there was certainly full Chinese participation in sanctions, and I think the United Nations has also endorsed and approved its efforts too. But following the, you know, series of summit, it seems like China has been softened, if not lifted up the sanctions on North Korea. It has definitely softened.
Let's go back to a little bit to what Trump has said. So he's saying there's no timeline and that there's no rush.
That's right.
And he's allowing North Korea time.
That's right.
But doesn't that mean that he's easing pressure on North Korea as well?
I don't think he means to ease pressure on North Korea, but rather he realizes how long of a process this is going to be instead of package deal. So he realizes that it's going to be a long and winding process. So therefore, he's offering more inducements to North Korea to bite the bait of, you know, denuclearization, but it doesn't seem that it's going that way thus far.
Is there anything he can do? Is there what does he have to do now?
Obviously, he's shifted his gears to phase process instead of a package deal, just once and done deal. So he's shifted his gear to that position, to that direction, obviously. So he's going to have to apply more pressure as the process goes by phase.
So he's going to have to take a phased approach. You
That's
think?
right.
That's the only way it will work.
Yes.
A question does occur to me right now. So, do you think Trump is really interested in denuclearization? Because obviously, you know, he made the deal with Kim Jong-un, but the fact is, I mean, within his base in the US,
Yes.
politically, does he already have a win by the fact that he met Kim Jong-un already?
Yes.
Does he need a denuclearization for it to continue winning?
I think that's a good question, but I don't think he has a personal interest in denuclearization of North Korea, if you ask me, because I think there's one indicator that we can apply, get a good reference from the past. That is, the United States cooperation or consultation with international organization on this particular matter. If he's committed to denuclearization of North Korea, then he has to go forward with dialogue and consultation with international organizations such as IAEA, but he hasn't done that yet because the United States is not in the position to confirm or verify any of the nuclear facilities or any nuclear programs without the participation of IAEA. It cannot do it independently. So in order, if Trump is really interested, he has to show his commitment through international organizations, but he hasn't done that yet.
Also, China throwing spanners into the works, as in he's accused China of meddling with North Korea. He's saying that China has put negative pressure on North Korea because of the backlash in retaliation to the trade war with the US. Does he have a point, do you think?
He has a point. From an outside perspective, definitely he has a point. But if you ask the Chinese is going to totally deny it.
Of course.
Yes. They say it is two separate things. There's no connection between the two. So there's no connection, absolutely. So from an outside perspective, Trump definitely has a point.
Do you think China would hold North Korea's situation almost hostage as part of this dispute with the US for trade? Do you think?
Oh, it'll have to, because as shown in Trump's displeasure of Xi Jinping meeting up Kim Jong-un just prior to the US North Korea summit, he wasn't too pleased about it, and he wouldn't be displeased without any reasons. Yes.
Let's move on to some other news that we're getting out from North Korea, in fact. So a couple of days ago, Kim Jong-un toured some construction sites. And it was reported on North Korean media that he scolded the North Korean workers at the construction site for taking too long and for the officials for not visiting the site often enough.
That's right.
How unusual is this? This seemed quite startling.
Yes.
But has this thing kind of happened before?
No, it never happened before. It is definitely unprecedented. It's unprecedented that a top leader, the great leader, shows up at the economic site and scolds its workers. The workforces that the communism really cherishes and appreciates highly. So that has been really unprecedented. I think it shows, how North Korea is devastated with its productivity in the economic and industrial areas. So I think it shows that how North Korean economic situation is compounded.
Is that showing like how much pressure is under on the economy, like with sanctions and everything else?
That's right. I mean, to begin with, even without sanctions, we know how scarce the resources in North Korea. But with sanctions being put on and being applied, the resources are going to be scarcer, right? More scarce. So, for Kim Jong-un, he has to emphasize on the efficiency and the productivity. He cannot waste any more of the resources, but the industrial workforce has to be really concentrating their efforts in, saving all these resources, scarce resources.
Since the turn of the year, he does seem to be stopping all nuclear tests and missile tests, and he does seem to be focusing on the economy. How important do you think the economy is it for him right now?
Oh, very absolutely, because we all know that on September 9th, North Korea is going to celebrate its, 70th anniversary of the nation's foundation. So, his country has been telling its people that how affluent the nation and state is going to be over the past 70 years, and it hasn't otherwise demonstrated so. So he's definitely cornered. So I guess to really greet this occasion with confidence, he has to show that the economy has been picking up in recent times.
Let's move on to another report that's coming out at the moment. Is in the US, the report has been made that 2 shipments of North Korean coal were allowed into South Korea last year.
Yes, that's right.
Now, the South Korean government have said they did know about this, but they are still investigating the matter.
Yes.
What do you make of this latest report?
It'll be a big blow to our, customs as well as government in terms of our credibility and credential. Should the report found to be true. If that's the case, I think the international community will be scrutinized by the international community about our efforts and commitments to the, sanctions on North Korea, because already the international community is not too find it too pleasant with our approaches to North Korea, because our government has been really advocating for inter-Korean, economic cooperations and all these, economic projects with North Korea and so forth. So they're already doubting whether these games are going to stay within the park and play by the rules. So should this report comes out to be true, then I think that's going to be a blow. That's going to deal a blow to our prospect of inter-Korean economic cooperation too.
Sure, it'll be a blow to our credibility, because it's something we let slip almost.
That's right.
It doesn't seem to be anything sinister. It seems to be that there was enough checks and balances in place to kind of stop this.
Absolutely.
But moving on to that point that you just said, South Korea said it will continue to place sanctions on North Korea, but at the same time it's also pursuing other economic exchanges and projects such as roads and rail and forestation constructions and all this kind of thing. The Seoul officials have said that they will try to keep within the international sanctions limits.
That's right.
But how does South Korea balance these two things?
I think that's a really good question and a really critical for our future inter-Korean cooperation on the economic front. But like I said, all these prospective projects should be played by the rules and play within the ballpark. Otherwise, we'll be targeted just like China if we're sincere about our commitment to international community's efforts of sanctions on North Korea. So I think for our international status and profile, I think that's also a critical matter too. So here I think we have to absolutely abide by the rules and play within the ballpark. I think otherwise, we'll be under strong criticism from the international community.
But at the same time, for the Moon administration, this is an opportunity he's not going to let go. He can't let go almost.
No, he cannot let go. But, there are so many ways to pursue, inter-Korean economic cooperation within the rules, within the rules and, within the ballpark, that is set by the United Nations too. Because not all items and, materials and resources are sanctioned by the United Nations. Just like South Korean government has been emphasizing, roads and infrastructure projects, they're not subject to sanctions. So if we can keep that rule and play by the game without, for instance, rebating money to North Korean government, without any cash flows into the Bank of North Korea, then we'll be fine.
What do you think is Moon Jae-in's objective with all these kind of inter-Korean relations? What is his ultimate goal, do you think?
Absolutely. He wants to induce North Korea to denuclearization by offering all these economic incentives. And I think he first wants to prove that, how valuable and how, North Korea can appreciate, all these economic incentives in return of denuclearization. But before going to denuclearization, he wants to show that, economic incentives and how beneficial it could be to North Korean government.
We're out of time, but thank you for coming in today and sharing us with your insights with us today.
Thank you.